Hi, it's Dan again. This week, we're talking about the Banking Industry Architecture Network, commonly known as BIAN or BIAN, which is a standard for computing in the banking industry in the 21st century. I spoke to my colleague Nish at CC&C Solutions, who are focused on BIAN and focused on banking, and I asked him after the last 3 or 4 years of working with this, where is BIAN today? What are the top use cases? How does it actually help banks? And are banks actually putting software in production? Because there have been a lot of prototypes and pilots and things like that. But what are people doing now, today? Is banking taking advantage of what BIAN has to offer? So, Nish, I asked, what are the top reasons for people to be using BIAN? What are the things that are working the best? What do you think are the real problems that people are actually using BIAN for to solve? What real questions is BIAN the best answer for?
One of the big issues is interoperability. I have a bunch of APIs. I'm now bringing in a new product system, or I am enabling a new channel, and therefore I've got a whole bunch of integration work to do. I don't want to keep having to do it over and over again. So, where can I go in order to design and build it once so that I don't have to keep designing and building it again? And that's one question BIAN is very good at answering. Its very genesis was around solving interoperability. So it was designed from the ground up to standardize on definitions. It was designed to have a semantic definition of services and APIs. It does a very good job of giving banks a way to build and design once and not have to worry about redoing it constantly just because they've moved from one vendor product to another. Another related question is, hey, we have data in different places. Some of it is locked away in mainframes, in product systems. It's proprietary format. We need to either get access to all of it in order to do analytics, or we need to upgrade to a different product system, but we're obligated for regulatory reasons to keep that old data somewhere. And preferably, we want to be able to leverage it. Now, we don't have a good standard, a way to do that. There's a lot of industry trends towards things like data products and data meshes. BIAN is a very practical answer to being able to have a domain aligned semantic data model that survives the shift in application versions, in technologies, even in business models. It just, a customer is a customer, right? You shouldn't have to change the definition of a customer just because you're offering them different products, or you can now originate them through new channels. And I think what BIAN will do very well through its business object model is give you a standard way to model your data such that if applications change, if business units restructure, if whatever other things happen, you've got a stable data model. So that's the second thing I think it does well. And then the last is the other problem banks are faced with, which is I've got a whole bunch of platforms or monoliths. They've got a lot of interrelated functionality. I know that in the future, I have to break these apart. I know it's no longer acceptable to have 2-year plus change cycles and regression test, millions of lines of code. I need to be able to break this apart. So I need some way to consistently define my service boundaries and my responsibilities. And again, BIAN's composable architecture and canonical definitions, as well as the mutually exclusive pattern that it employs, I think gives banks a really great way to answer the problem. How do I eat the elephant one bite at a time rather than trying to swallow it all at once?
So you're describing questions that IT people have, I think, but I'm not hearing questions that banking business people have.
At the end of the day, all of the bank is ultimately just a technology company, right? There is a business layer. You're ultimately selling banking products and you offer services that are defined by the business and delivered from the business to the client. What we're seeing now is when these conversations happen, it's the CIO and the CTO that are at the table who are then asked, what will it take to make this happen? Even what I've just described seems very technology focused. the a piece of it is in the fact that all those problems I describe are blockers to the business. So when banks want to engage in embedded finance and insert their products into non-traditional, non-banking value chains, like I want to be able to instantly get a credit card approved at the retail store when I'm trying to make a large purchase, or I want to be able to immediately access a car loan while I'm at the dealership because I happen to see a model I really like, then that ultimately is reliant upon can my tech stack enable that? Can I interoperate with an ecosystem that sits outside my boundary? And that ultimately just becomes a technology problem, right? It doesn't matter whether your business model is clearly thought out and really well defined. If you can't enable it, then it's dead in the water. I think if you generalize across the industry and you see the typical kind of legacy that banks are carrying, there needs to be some way to standardize on APIs. There needs to be some way to break down your services into discrete partitions and well-defined boundaries. There needs to be some way to have your data model defined for these business entities. And you don't have to use BIAN, but the question becomes, why go and invent your own when you can pick up something that has been thought through by many, many other banks, as well as vendors and research partners and service providers? Why not pick that up, right? So I think that's where the value proposition comes in.
Are you aware of any banks that have used BIAN to actually solve a business problem? Is there something in production that's notable and that you can talk about?
Absolutely. There's dozens actually of well-published benefit stories and use cases that you can access on the BIAN website. And they're just the ones that are, again, published, right? We are of course working with clients where we can't talk about what they've done, but examples include Standard Chartered in South Africa that adopted BIAN to rationalize a whole bunch of APIs and realized some pretty impressive gains in terms of reducing their API footprint, reducing their operational expense, improving the time to market for the new capabilities because they were building it on a simpler stack. That's just one, right? There have been
what kind of new capabilities were they bringing to market faster, for example?
I don't think the published use case listed those out. They did say they had a reduction of some 40% in time to market as a result of building on a simpler stack, but they didn't elaborate on exactly which use cases they were.
So if I can summarize what I think he's talking about, one is APIs and the idea that BIAN APIs can help banks to have standard interfaces between their systems and other systems or among systems that are internal. Is that fair?
Yep, absolutely.
So one of the customers that I have that you're aware of is using BIAN to as a template for understanding their application portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
But they're using Google APIs for their API project. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, the part of the beauty of BIAN is you do not have to adopt it wholesale across the enterprise, and nor do you have to adopt it as your data model and API model and reference architecture and service op model and business architecture. Instead, you can get benefit. I mean, the simplest, easiest example to give is if you do nothing more than adopt BIAN's definitions, you get a sort of Rosetta Stone between the business and technology that anyone in the organization can at least know that they're talking about the same thing when they say checking account or payment or fraud check or whatever. Now that's a passive use of BIAN, right? It gets you benefit. Is it huge benefit? Arguable, but is it a lot of effort? Not really. So I think using the BIAN service domain model for application mapping to identify duplication in your app stack and then drive a rationalization program from it is a very valid use of BIAN, for which you do not have to move to the API standard, nor do you have to adopt their data model and so on. What we tell clients is no matter which way you approach this, if your priority is app rationalization versus interoperability, or you're bringing in a new core and you want to do it the right way, it doesn't matter how you approach it. You can dip your toe into the water in any of these use cases, and the more you then adopt it, the better your return will be. So you can stop with just app rationalization, but if you then go on to align your APIs, well, it just means that the next vendor product you integrate with that is also BIAN aligned, you will be able to do it faster and cheaper. So while it's not necessary, you can unlock more benefit as you go along.
Have you got clients now who are actually putting something in production using BIAN?
Absolutely. There's incremental releases happening as we speak. So we have clients in Australia. There are APIs being deployed. There are services being stood up, microservices being stood up that are going into production, and the design is based on BIAN.
So, as you know, as we've talked about quite a lot of banks have embraced BIAN as a concept, or they have a leader in the IT group who thinks BIAN is a great idea, but they seem to be very slow to get beyond building pilots and prototypes and things like that. So I'm just wondering what's actually working and what is it that holds people back?
BIAN is not a implementation standard. You can't take a manual or a recipe book or an application guide and follow it step by step and implement it. It's not that kind of framework. It is semantic. Its power lies in the fact that it's implementation agnostic, technology agnostic. At its heart, it's not an overly complex architecture, right? There is a beauty in its simplicity. One of the things that holds people back is the constant need to reduce or compare it to things like, say, object-oriented programming, right, or microservice design, and that's really not what it's there for, right? You have to stay at that semantic level. So I think the first thing is training is really critical, right? And it's not just the training on the content; it's the mindset shift that a good training course will deliver, where you are able to lift up and actually think about architecture rather than thinking about application or implementation. And in thinking about the architecture, you can start to better understand the concepts that BIAN brings, and then start to relate it back down into what that means for your role, whether you're a product owner, a business analyst, or an engineer, or a solution designer. So training is really helpful, and not just any training, but I think, and this is where we tend to excel, is persona-based, tailored training that will take the relevant aspects of BIAN to roles, your leaders, your general managers, your department heads. That's one sort of persona. If you think about your architects that have to define the usage of BIAN in the organization, that's another persona. If you think about your designers, your solution designers, your application designers, they have to then take that definition and apply it. And then you think of your engineers and your BAs that have to, go into technical specs and turn those into processes and application code. There are different personas, and BIAN has a particular focus for each of these. So I think being able to take that to the user and help them better understand how it applies in their role is really important. We definitely encourage organizations to get into doing some sort of POC, right? Hopefully they don't just stop there, but we believe that there's the best way to learn is to actually get the teams engaging with the standard, being able to interpret it, being able to apply it. And if you have the right guidance from experts such as ourselves, you can you can do it with the confidence, knowing that you're staying within the guardrails. You're not wandering off into, accidentally applying it the wrong way or breaking the pattern or anything like that. And then the last is thinking ahead. Rolling or scaling out any kind of standard and adopting it consistently requires good governance. It requires good tooling. It requires good process. So you've also got to think about, well, if you're a mature organization that already has these things, how do you weave BIAN into that? And if you're not a mature organization or you've got gaps in these areas, then how do you establish that so that you can consistently apply buy-in and not have it spring up in different pockets which happen to have differences and don't quite gel together?
So what's the most successful proof of concept type of thing that you're aware of that people have done with you?
Having a set of legacy applications for which you put some kind of wrapper API is often a very good, and we've seen this. It's a very good way to immediately demonstrate value. You're not boiling the ocean. You're not having to engage in these very, very protracted, back end sort of system reengineering. You can actually stand up proxy APIs, build some kind of service layer that's aligned to buy-in in a matter of weeks rather than months or years.
But can you just step back from the process and what is the thing that they're trying to do that people are happiest with?
It's more about future proofing. When you implement any kind of a project, forget the tech or business aspect, but when you implement a project, the real business issue isn't surfaced at that point in time. It's surfaced when you do the next project, because the previous project did nothing to give you anything reusable. And so the hidden cost is the fact that the next project costs you the same again, right? So the business problem that you're solving when you build a buy-in aligned interoperable layer is that every future integration that you do, you have less work that you have to incur each time. That's the business benefit.
Okay, so you're saying that buy-in is going to give you reusable building blocks for new projects.
Absolutely.
That
The
the
secondary
traditional way of
benefit as
working
well.
won't do. So you're getting
Correct. Spot
all
on.
right.
And there's a secondary benefit, which is if you and we see this in smaller organizations, if you don't have an existing standard, the time it takes to design and develop this interoperability is fairly long, because you're having to go and define the APIs, even almost like build the governance along as you go, right? Whereas with buy-in, if you pick it up out of the box, you've already got API specs. You already have a starting point. So your developer doesn't have to worry about detailed design and things like that. They can pick up the buy-in swagger and begin filling it out, which does have a business benefit of speed to market.
So they can complete their project faster, but not the
Correct.
first project.
Well, even the first one, you can, if you're starting with a spec that's already provided, then you are getting that boost, right? You're not, the improvement or the benefit, sorry, becomes more apparent in the second and third and fourth projects, but you do get some in the first as well. Has it hit mainstream yet? Probably not. Is it gaining traction? Absolutely. And I think it's tipped past that point where it is esoteric or so rare that people go, oh gosh, I'm not really sure. We can go to a particular area and say, well, here's someone in your geography that has done something and they've published results and they're happy to talk about it.
Very interesting.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for your time. Enjoy your weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.